Welcome, everyone. This is another session of How I Use GreyNoise, and I'm here with the extraordinaire Aaron DeVera. Aaron, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, folks, I'm Aaron. My pronouns are they, them. And you know, I have a slide up that kind of just says my whole deal. I've worked in security research, security consulting, usually aligned to some sort of threat intelligence or security research role. And what I've been doing lately is I'm an independent security researcher. All of my work goes under back channel. So if you see that throughout the slides, that's literally just me. Um, my whole thing is like I really like technology. I really don't like how technology almost always gets used to sell people mattresses in a more optimal way rather than uplifting people, uplifting underserved communities. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today is going to be the product of some sort of work I've done in like the counter abuse space. I'll get very like detailed into how that all works, but I'm a member of what's called the Cyber Abuse Task Force here in New York. It used to be known as the Cyber Sexual Abuse Task Force. And I'm just going to be browsing the web through this whole thing. If if you want to learn about more what we do, you could just go to cyberabuse.nyc. I'm kind of like the technical subject matter expert attached to this task force. So a lot of folks will come to me for like a security audit or understand kind of like what the latest and greatest in the gutter of the internet is. So some of the experiential stuff that I'm going to be talking about when it comes to using GreyNoise for like fingerprinting is going to be coming from that context, right? Like someone has come to me and we're trying to figure out who is visiting their Instagram profile like 20 times a day, or visiting their blog or DDoSing their blog. So I'm going to get pretty detailed into like how that all works, what the engineering stack is behind it, and where GreyNoise fits in. So really, I'm going to be talking about like data enrichment and the way that you might ingest GreyNoise in a manner that is outside of the front end that they've built and actually in your own analysis environment. Um,
Aaron,
what
before
that,
we dive into that, can you
yeah.
tell us actually a little bit about how you heard about GreyNoise and how long you've been using
Um, I have no idea how I heard about GreyNoise. I'm always looking for like fun hackery things, and GreyNoise definitely fits that bill. Um, I mean, like I think all of us have heard of the type of tools that GreyNoise constantly gets like compared to, maybe casually, like a Shodan or a Census. I think what really what the simplicity of GreyNoise is like really to me like that classification engine and the tag system beneath it. That's something that like maybe you've seen that internally if you have like a really awesome like network classification sort of program happening in your internal security service. But I feel like there aren't too many services that just provide that sort of annotation and classification for the web and provide that as a service. So I just thought that was fantastic. Had been using it since. So yeah. A little bit of like some of my previous work has been at White Ops. They're now known as Human, but there's a lot of companies that I think have done a really fantastic job annotating the web. It's just not necessarily as freely available as GreyNoise. So that's why it kind of fits into this tech stack here. So yeah, I'll move on to that part.
Let's get into it.
This is what the architecture looks like. Very loosely. There's like a freebie I'm going to give away at the end of this talk. And if you want to just like ignore everything I'm saying and just go straight to it, a lot of what I've built is based around the idea that you can just create your own analytics engine. So I went ahead and open sourced like kind of the guts of that. So if you want to go to GitHub, I'll put the link in the chat. back to the slide. So when I say edge service, that's what I'm talking about. I've deployed something to something like Cloudflare where it's going to handle the edge request from a client who's requesting it. It's then going to go to this detection and decisioning. What happens here is like, that's a special sauce, right? Like you can have your own sort of like made up risk analysis engine and input that there. And in today's context, we're going to be talking about using GreyNoise here. And then, you get some sort of decision out of that. In the GreyNoise context, it's going to be the classification of benign, malicious, unknown. But I'm doing much more on this side internally. There was a really great question on Twitter before this talk about like should we be using GreyNoise as the oracle for like all of our decisioning and detection? I mean, probably not. You should probably be using like a whole host of sources. There's a gajillion different like free threat intel feeds that you can just get off of like GitHub. You don't necessarily need to be paying for any of them. Actually, yeah, that's probably another thing. I'm just gonna keep browsing the web here, but if you haven't seen awesome threat intelligence, it's just fantastic. Go ahead, go to this repo and like start it immediately. But it's just like all the free OSINT and like just feeds you could want, and none of them cost like 500,000 a year or something. So yeah, you could get really like built out in this respect. So it doesn't really matter. There's some sort of detection and decisioning happening in the middle. And then because of that, you're going to serve a response back to the client device. So all of this ideally happens in under a second. We're going to be talking a lot about like milliseconds here. And in fact, like the GitHub project that I pointed to that I'm open sourcing today, like I did a couple of benchmarks. Like you could see like, since I'm essentially man in the middling, like I'm handling a request from a user, going to GreyNoise to get a response, and then returning a response back to the user depending on the GreyNoise classification. All that needs to happen in like a somewhat usable amount of time. If it was like 10x slower than without the API lookup, I would probably just ditch this altogether. But as you can see, it's the difference between 57 milliseconds without the lookup versus sub 400 with it. And that's kind of like the best speed I could get. But I don't know, open sourcing it, maybe somebody will look at my code and be like, oh, you're an awful developer, you could optimize it some way. So hopefully somebody wants to do that. But I mean, look, like if this sounds complex to you, like this all fit under like 100 lines of code. It's not that crazy. A lot of it is just like comments too. So yeah, it's chill. And I guess like if you want to see it for yourself, you could go to rangelife.backchannel.re. And if you want to look at the GreyNoise info that's going into that, you could just go to the info endpoint. So theoretically, if I were like some sort of crawler, I would just get like redirected to an ASCII rickroll thing that would happen. Obviously, I'm a nice human, so GreyNoise didn't flag me. But we could look at the info here that we're getting from like Cloudflare. First off, it's V6, so the GreyNoise response is going to just be, that's not a valid IPv4. No matter. Here's like some of this like good Cloudflare data. Of course, you get like the request headers. What I really like about Cloudflare is how they alter the headers to add all these like great informational things. So sometimes you get the country. Sometimes you also get like the platform. So you can instantly from the edge do a lot of decisioning there, right? Like if you see that it's mobile, you can serve up some sort of page that is very mobile. So a lot of that just happens at the edge. It's fun. And you get some more juicy Cloudflare data. I mean, they're doing GeoIP enrichment for me, so I don't necessarily need to go do that. So yeah, super useful. That's my IP. Oh, scary. The final part about this architecture is everything gets sunk to a data warehouse. I'm going to be talking a lot about Snowflake and using Snowflake and saying very Snowflakey things, but like that could just be Splunk. That could be it could literally just be like syncing to AWS. It could be anything. It doesn't matter. The point being is that you are putting it somewhere that you're storing. I mean, I think like the OG GreyNoise was like on Postgres, right? Like it could literally just be a Postgres in your room, right? It doesn't matter. The idea is that you're storing it somewhere and storing it in a place where you can later do some sort of analysis on it. So yeah, this architecture, you could spin it any which way. Let me talk about just a very real example, right? I have a client who deals a lot with abuse. They are just this awesome group that provides therapy for victims of cyber stalking and all sorts of things that are just kind of icky because people on the internet can be icky. So how do I protect the site? How do I protect this place? The way I think about it is I have all these clients, some are groups, some are individuals. I kind of just want to act like their SOC, even though it's not like I'm running device management on their devices or anything, but I want as much telemetry as possible on the places that are most likely to be visited by baddies. So when you go to the bottom of the view source, you can see one of my scripts, right? Detect.mx, but it's actually going to take you to our newest tag, which of course it's having some sort of deal. So yeah, I mean, I'm running a JavaScript payload. It's just super simple. I'm just iterating through all the available things in Navigator. I have a couple of fun little tricks, getting the graphics card, things like that, blah, blah, blah. All this ends up in my data warehouse. And the way that it gets there is first it goes to Confluent, which is Kafka. There's a streaming bus sort of architecture here that I just totally didn't put here because it'd be simple. But the way that these arrows actually get to the data warehouse is that there's some sort of streaming system. In this case, it's Kafka. But in a lot of different scenarios, you're probably going to be using something similar to it, if not Kafka itself. I mean, Splunk is a streaming analytics engine. It's just proprietary. Everything in my stack so far, besides Snowflake, is fairly open source. So Kafka is divided into topics, pub sub sort of model, and you can see the topics I have here, right? I have some enrichments here. I got all sorts of stuff. One thing I have is GreyNoise, right? So the way that this more developed model works is that anytime that there's an edge request to one of my client sites, right? There's some sort of edge request that I see. I then return a JavaScript payload, but at the same time, simultaneously, I'm also going to do some enrichment with GreyNoise. And all of this is happening in a serverless manner. It's all happening asynchronous event-based, so as to not provide that much latency to that client response. And when you look at the other topics, I also had things like IP info, UA parser. So all of this basically just allows me to have all these asynchronous enrichments moved off the edge, and they happen asynchronously in the background while the edge is trying to figure out, okay, we got a request. What are we going to serve them? Based off of some of those edge analytics, I'd serve them, usually nothing. Usually it's okay, this person isn't on my watch list. But say it was a very specific person in Louisiana with a very specific device that we know from an order of protection or a restraining order. If somebody who fits the bill of something that we already know about, then yeah, I'm going to send alert or something. So yeah, let's actually like look at this data as it's coming in. I have I'm going to spend a lot of time here like in Snowflake. If you aren't used to Snowflake, I'm sorry. It's like I love it, but I definitely have the blinders on in terms of like trying to make it accessible to everybody. So if there's something you want to see, just like let me know. I'll zoom in. But all of this is to say it's coming just like straight from my collectors, right? Like my little web analytics engines. So we have GreyNoise here. This is all GreyNoise data. You can see in like this raw response. This is like just from the API. So this is what happens when you like sync all this to your own data warehouse, right? I'm no longer in like the comfortability of the GreyNoise front end, which they've done an amazing job with, but rather I'm like in this like kind of like dungeon of my own design. So if you have data quality issues, yeah, you're gonna have a bad time. So the benefits here are pretty great if you're like really into analytics. Like first we can just go like, okay, get me everything where the classification was malicious. No. Great. Gosh, I really should have written some of these beforehand.
It's not a demo without a failure. I mean, that's like on par
Yeah,
for
it's classic. Yeah.
them.
If anyone caught what was wrong with that query, and I appreciate it. But in any case, we're gonna just take that, put it here. Okay, so here's a bunch of malicious traffic that my crawlers have received from this specific collector. And so like, yeah, that's one where condition, like whatever. But since I'm also collecting all this other data that is not GreyNoise and like proprietary to my script end, I shouldn't say proprietary, but I'm doing firsthand collections on my scripts. I can start comparing like, okay, well, let's look at what I saw. Let's look at some of like the device interrogation I'm running, and then let's compare that to GreyNoise. So some of y'all in the GreyNoise Slack might have seen some of the things I was doing with like proxies, for instance. Let's go ahead and jump to that actually. It's probably going to be under OLA VPN. Great. Let's just go to the GreyNoise Slack where I posted it. I'm talking about a post not too long ago that I did. Almost all the posts I've been posting in the GreyNoise Slack, by the way, are like directly from me just like running these analytics around. So if that kind of like makes sense. So here's what I posted in the GreyNoise Slack, right? It's let me just get the right query. Oh, thanks, Supriya. Yeah, I just don't want to sign in. So, oh yeah, you could also see in the time that we've been talking, we've been getting like the streaming like requests. So you could see on my like this is Kafka, Confluence the service, but you can run Kafka like on your computer and be like the streaming message bus. So in the time that we've been talking, there's been like a couple of requests. Everything's been a noise false, so nothing too scary going on. I'm trying to find the yeah, sweet. So here's an example of like, okay, I am collecting data. I know that I have my GreyNoise enrichment. Let's do like a back-to-back. So what I have here is a query that is very specifically looking for this type of VPN service, OLA. And I'm looking at all the things that I know to be OLA. and yet the GreyNoise stuff wasn't flagged. So that's the kind of thing where I like brought it to the Slack, being like, oh, hey, like here's how we can like flag this type of proxy. The trick, by the way, is for this specific one at least, is when you see this type of Illuminati traffic, and Illuminati, OLA, same thing, you're gonna see like the proxy authorizations here. I'm not gonna zoom in, or I'm not gonna scroll all the way because this is basically their username passwords. But when you see that, you decode it, and it's like Illuminati in the username. It's like, okay, yeah, this is someone using residential IP services. I'm probably not going to allow them to visit my clients' websites. So this is the kind of thing of where like, okay, it's in a data warehouse that I'm collecting data. I have this great enrichment from GreyNoise. I have this awesome enrichment from like IP info, virus total, et cetera. And I'm storing the classification here so I can do the analysis on my own with my own data. Again, GreyNoise is a great interface for searching GreyNoise data, but really where this magic happens is doing comparisons like this, where I'm like looking at the data I collected, looking at the data GreyNoise has, and seeing like, okay, where is a situation where I'm going to trust what I'm collecting, maybe a little bit more in the risk confidence area than what GreyNoise has for this particular session. One of the great questions from Twitter, I think they're here on the call now, but they asked, should we always just be like using GreyNoise as the oracle for this sort of detection mechanism? And the answer is like, ideally you have some sort of confidence interval based off a whole bunch of data. You use that like awesome threat intel GitHub repo, use GreyNoise, use anything you can that is free, and build out a system. And hopefully, if you want to give Cloudflare workers a try, that GitHub thing that I'm open sourcing today, it might be a good place to start, because look, you can basically go into here and replace out this. Maybe I shouldn't be advising people to not use GreyNoise, but like you can make an API request to anything here, right? Like it could go to Spamhaus, boo, or it could go to like Virus Total. It could literally just go to anything, and you get that response of like should we block it? So yeah, hopefully this boilerplate kind of helps you out, and like how you might use this in some sort of pipeline where you're doing like real-time enrichment in such a way. And of course, and hopefully you're storing it to a data warehouse where you can actually like analyze it. So yeah, that's
Aaron.
Yeah.
No, I'm interrupting your flow, but I just want to drop in and say a couple of things that I think are important to highlight. Obviously, the session is called How I Use GreyNoise. So we'd really like you to use our data and have a lot of confidence. But to your point, and I think, Adam, what you said on Twitter is really pertinent. And I think just like the core of like working in Intel is that your data will always be like the top like source. Like you can't get any better than your own like telemetry. So of course, GreyNoise and other vendors like that type of data is secondary. But for an instance like this and in your example, hopefully just adding some color and context is really valuable, and double down, like you can see a lot more fields once you go into the visualizer. So I know we were looking at the Ola VPN too, and in the community Slack, there was a good conversation with Tom, who is the head of Spur. So I don't think they currently tag Ola, but I was just looking up some of the IPs, and I know that we were able to identify some of them as VPN. So, but this is a great example too of like community-driven research that is helping us like internally at GreyNoise to like go back and review some of our data and add like fields and continue to collect on that. So just wanted to highlight, of course, Aaron's doing this session, but they've been an invaluable asset in helping us too. So is this a good time to open up for questions? Aaron, did you have more stuff you wanted to cover?
That was the bulk of it. And again, if everyone wants to see something like specific, I could just go back and zoom in. It's all just like easy to look up. So
awesome. Well, we can take a moment then to answer any questions. You feel free to unmute, or you can drop them in the chat and I can dictate them, whichever. I ask that you raise your hand. That's my only rule. Don't know what happened. Everyone just disappeared from my view.
I have a question about VPN, like people coming in from a VPN. Like we have, legitimate users. We have coming into corporate network from various VPNs, and we get alerts about these. And I think currently we're not doing as much with them as we can. We could have someone from the SOC reach out to that user and say, "Oh, you're using a VPN." But that gets kind of tedious. Do you have any like ranking or insight, like way of saying, like trying to think the best question here, but is there something that you're aware of that you can do with GreyNoise to help evaluate the likelihood of a VPN ingress being harmful?
So that's a great question, because there are tons of VPN tags on GreyNoise. So right now I'm just like, if you haven't looked at this view on GreyNoise, by the way, it's like super helpful. All those like tags that the research team at GreyNoise is annotating on the traffic that they see is just on the tags view. And a lot of times I'm reference this and see if there's like a certain VPN tag that's around. There's also like the VPN service, and as it auto populates, you can see some of it, right? So let's like look at whatever. There's like anonymous VPN, right? Like that doesn't sound like a VPN I want to allow. So like we have some fairly high confidence when GreyNoise is able to say, like, it's not just a VPN, but it's this VPN where we see malicious traffic from it all the time. In this particular one, it looks like there's 6 sessions that are malicious, 24 unknown. And again, I'm seeing all this in real time. And then I also get it sunk to my data warehouse. So I can basically use any of these decisions from GreyNoise or tags from GreyNoise as part of my strategy in determining whether or not this is a malicious session that's about to happen. So Supriya was just saying a lot of this comes from GreyNoise, a lot of it comes from Spur Analytics, spur.us, I believe, which is also doing some amazing, I really hope that's it. Yeah, it's it. But like GreyNoise are doing awesome work annotating the web. And of course, we're not going to know like every single VPN IP address out there, especially when you're talking about the ones I was talking about with Illuminati, where they're basically hijacking other people's IPs, residential IPs. So the best that we can do is, have some sort of strategy where we can evaluate the risk of the session and have some sort of threshold or confidence interval for it. The thing is, like, when GreyNoise is able to say, or like, this is a VPN and it's classified malicious, to me, that's all I need, right? Like that's like, and it's a highly reliable source. It's consistent, and that I don't need to do any further analysis if GreyNoise is telling me that. It's really those cases where GreyNoise might have seen it and it's unknown, so I need to do like a little bit extra digging to see if I want to allow it. One of the enrichments I have here is IP info, which is just like my favorite GeoIP service. But one of the best parts about it is their hostname identification. So Adam, you brought up like corporate VPNs, right? Well, I can see the corporate VPN hosted on AWS for some of these services. And the way I can do that is by looking at what IP info is saying is the host name. I think I saw, here we go. So here we have a Pinterest crawler, right? And again, this is the raw response from IP info, not GreyNoise. But what I'm going to do is be like, okay, well, it's AWS. And we know that because of the ASN, the IP. Let's go ahead and see what GreyNoise says about that IP. Oh, okay. So that's why like all source is definitely like useful here. But you know, it gives us a little bit of intelligence. It's like in that host name that we see from IP info, it's like crawl pinterest.com, right? So like I don't need to do too much guessing to be like, okay, this is a crawler. So I don't know. I think some of the things I worry about most is people running self-hosted VPNs on AWS that just look like corporate traffic. And what that would look like is like one of these sessions, right? We have, it's the AWS ASN. The IP is definitely from EC2. We know that from the host name. But like this could be somebody running like a WireGuard protocol for themselves. And there's just next to nothing I know about that session from that sort of data to tell me of whether or not this is a good actor or a bad actor. So, you know, that's probably a time where I would let the session run, look at the type of data I'm collecting, and look at what they're doing on the site. If this session is, you know, happening at the same time as some sort of DDoS, maybe they're part of that DDoS. If it's just scrolling around the website and like up and down and like going through the navigation, it's more than likely going to be like some regular person just reading about the site. I can't make too much distinction on my own in that situation. And like us as security operators, like ideally we have data, either historical that we own or enrichment like GreyNoise, to lean on and help us make these decisions of whether or not this was a good session or a bad session. But at the end of the day, it's usually not like in a nice binary. It's more just like a confidence interval of risk. So yeah, it's super interesting because like corporate VPNs like will always just look like this, and it's a big like, well, I don't know about it. So it was a really good question that you asked, Adam. I do have the bonus for you. Hang on. Looking for rogue AWS devices.
Did that answer your question, Adam?
It did. It actually expanded on what I was wondering about. Our case is more people using like ExpressVPN or whatever coming into a corporate network. So they might actually be using their VPN, their sort of private like consumer VPN, to then come through our corporate VPN to get into the corporate network. And of course, we're flagging up like data camp has been showing up a lot lately. And that tag that you put in, I mean, let's pretend that I'm at a very early stage and I'm a wide-eyed neophyte when it comes to GreyNoise. I'm just trying to expand my learning here. But yeah, it did not only answer my question because Supriya, you've added that tag into the chat, very useful, and Aaron, you've also pointed out a whole new section of question that I could have asked about people, setting up their own like VPN on AWS. So yeah, I think I've got a lot to think about already. Thank you. And yeah, that does lead nicely to that bonus item that you talked about. So I'll be quiet now. Thank you.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, so the query I just posted here is about rogue AWS. One of the questions from Twitter was like about things like AWS sessions, whether or not knowing like is this going to be malicious or not. Let's actually just take out I have like the classification malicious here in this query, but let's just take that out and see like, okay, like percentage of the time, how often is GreyNoise seeing AWS and it's not getting the malicious. There we go. So these are just two AWS ASNs, and you can see down here, it's like, okay, 2 are benign from what GreyNoise is seeing. We got about like 6K that are malicious, and the unknowns are, it's like a little under 113K. So does that more or less, if we understand GreyNoise as like global scale, we can basically say like, okay, then this percentage of the time, like 6 in 113, we're going to see a malicious AWS session. So that again adds to that risk tolerance sort of question of just like, okay, like we see it's AWS, it has this, like according to GreyNoise, has this X and N like chances of being malicious. If it is actually getting the classification malicious flag from GreyNoise, then it's like, okay, yeah, drop the packet. So again, one of those things where it's like, if the classification malicious is there, I just absolutely trust GreyNoise. Like, why not? It's really like for those unknowns that that we've been talking about this past like 20 minutes, which is like the edge case, adding more data as much as you can to better understand it, and hopefully posting about it in a place like the GreyNoise Slack where we can all be like, ah, yes, bad, and we can add it to our own internal like tracking. But yeah, that query I posted in the chat is the one that we're looking at here. It's like, well, it's classification malicious in the one I posted. This one's unknown. But when you look at like some of these unknown, it's like, okay, this one has like a Paramico tag. That's like an SSH brute forcer. Like maybe, but likely. Like some of these are not necessarily things I would want to allow. And when you look at like some of your own data of what you've seen maybe from that IP range, like, and it's all crawling, then it's like, okay, yeah, maybe I shouldn't allow that. And again, host names are super useful. It's not going to happen on all of IP Info's traffic or GreyNoise's traffic, but when it is there, it is like very useful because we could see this IP, while classified as unknown, looks to be some sort of analytics subdomain of whatever service this is. Perhaps it also a crawler. We can make some sort of insights from how reverse DNS has mapped this IP to some domain somewhere. So yeah, always a super useful thing. Again, it's all about confidence intervals. Some of these might be just like extremely non-informational, and that's okay. You're just using the data as you get it and to do your best. And we all, yeah.
I'll also point out that that data, if you go back to the IP info page, has a note that it's spoofable. So again, this is like activity that we're seeing that may or may not be from this actual IP. I think the more information, kind of our credo at GreyNoise is the more information we can kind of throw at analysts to just add any type of context and any information to be as helpful when, as you've brought up, is that like risk and decision matrix.
Yeah. So yeah, any more questions? Anything else people want to see here? Yeah.
Going once, going twice.
Has anyone visited my little domain and gotten anything other than hello, nice human?
I did. I had some fun with it.
Oh yeah. Did you get the Rickroll?
I got a redirect to a domain, but it failed to resolve because I think the public domain, the DNS record wasn't resolvable. But I did get the redirect, and when you were querying the data, the top result was me, and I was like, haha, there I am.
Nice. Yeah. When you go into the code, what I'm doing is I'm redirecting to my friend's site, and they have like an ASCII Rickroll thing, but I didn't actually look into like how runnable that even is in the browser. So again, you could just drop packets if you like think that something is going to be a bad session. I mean, like that's what the whole point of this is. Great, using GreyNoise to understand like is the classification malicious? Should we drop this? So yeah. I guess I'll just continue posting some of these links so you have them handy. But yeah, that's about it. Again, like the whole point here was like to really talk about integrating it directly with your data. That's only as good as if you have an interface where you enjoy being in it. I enjoy being in Snowflake, but GreyNoise has put a lot of work making the front end like very useful, and like just like the ease of going through here and being like, okay, organization, data camp, and like having a lot of those fields like suggest and populate for me is just like super easy. So yeah, I really enjoy using this to start setting up what I'm about to code and integrate.
This is amazing. Aaron, will you do me a favor? Will you go up, scroll up, and go to resources, documentation, and
yes, this is where I started the project. I read this first before I.
Of course, as everyone does, read our doc. If you go to integrations, and you can like kind of scroll to the bottom, but long story short, I just kind of wanted to show everyone that we obviously have like a ton of integrations, and Aaron's whole demo is to show like GreyNoise is, we have a fabulous UI, and I'm very proud of our visualizer. But the idea is that you should be able to use GreyNoise wherever you like live most of the time. So for Aaron, if that's Snowflake, like by all means, like Snowflake. And I think that there's at least 30 integrations on this list, and it just keeps growing. I think Brad is on the call too. Brad is our integrations expert. But we'll be adding this Cloudflare integration as one of the community contributed integrations. If there is a project or like an integration that you have developed, or someone that has, please let me know, and I will be sure to add it to this list as well. We're trying to be as exhaustive as possible and make sure that we're giving proper credit to those who have worked hard to develop things like that. And it also allows other people to go in and push contributions or make any changes or additions, especially as our API continues to develop and our data continues to grow. So fantastic. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for this. This was really, really valuable, and I think kind of shows yet another way that people can use GreyNoise. So again, I'm happy to take questions offline. You can join us on the community Slack. If you're not already there, I can drop the link right now. And let me just drop this link.
Yeah, thanks all for attending, and thanks GreyNoise for having me. Like I know I could talk about like some of the data like very granularly. So again, just ping Supriya if there's anything here that you want to like follow up on. And like we were having some of the conversation on Twitter. We were also in the GreyNoise Slack. The GreyNoise Slack is like somewhere where like there's just a channel if like, are you seeing this? If you ever find something cool, just like post it. It'll be a very fun convo.
Absolutely. So this has been yet another How I Use GreyNoise session. If you are actually using GreyNoise or someone you know is, and you want to do one of these sessions, you can reach out to me, community@greynoise.io. My name's Supriya, by the way. I don't think I ever said that, but it's nice to meet all of you. And I hope you join us on Slack or on Twitter or anywhere that you feel that you can be reached. I look forward to it. I'm gonna see you later.